when we share our experiences, we're not alone in them. We all have some loss of some kind, some stress of some kind, but how do we walk through it? How do we walk each other through it? Because then that love through that becomes that sustaining energy that brings us back to our connection with ourself and God and source and the love inside. And then that can get expressed out.
You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by the Going North Podcast.com shop. Head over to that wonderful website to pick up some merchandise. We got shirts, hoodies, mugs, t-shirts, flags, notebooks, journals, just about almost everything under the sun, even stickers and buttons indeed for your lanyards and for your decorations as well. And we got multiple designs, advance others to advance yourself. We got the Going North Podcast.com logo as well as outread your competition to outlead your competition. And we even got bags too, so check out the wonderful podcast merch shop and be on the lookout for sales. They got wonderful 35% off sales spread out throughout every single month, so that way you can save even more money, so you can get more bang for your buck, so you can bang out your goals through the inspiration you're going to get today on this podcast. Check it out like a library book, my friends. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as the Going North Podcast, we got another super special, awesome human for you today. That's right, indeed. Courtesy from another round. That's right, indeed. Another round from the book spearheaded by Dr. Marcus Wittstein and Peggy Wilms. That's right, indeed. The wonderful Win the Wellness W.A.R. That's right, indeed. Hashtag we are responsible. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Because what is good for? You know, what is war good for? Absolutely nothing. But hey, this war is good for absolutely everything indeed, because we got the fourfold wheel back and we got another returning guest indeed. So my goodness. Let me tell you a bit about her, because we got one of the wonderful, dare I say, witches back, because she's magical and she practices white magic, because she'll have you freaking hypnotized. Because today's guest today, she's a transformational coach, as well as an energy intuitive and a fellow radio show host who has a whole toolbox of wonderful spiritual wares. So let's give it up for the generous and lovely, the one and only Gina Lobito. How you doing today, Gina?
Dom, thank you. I am doing really well, and I'm so excited to be on with you today.
Excited to have you back with a big old X and D. That's right, indeed. I'm like, yay. Folks were all calm from last time. It's like you just walked in and then everybody was chill. And then it was like we all just had halos on our heads. Didn't even need orange robes. We had yellow robes instead. Wanted to be
Nice.
different.
Yeah, straight to that golden light, right?
That's right. We even kept our hair too. We didn't go fully bald either.
You can make it grow back.
That's right, indeed. Maybe one day we'll get to Rapunzel level, but hey, ain't about it. Rapunzel's about the wonderful, glamorous Gina. So, my goodness, how have you been? It's been a year since the last book is published, and you've been doing some great work indeed. So, how have you been? What have you been working on?
That's a great question, because it seems to change weekly almost. Yeah, I can't believe, number one, it's been a year since the first book already, and then it feels like it's been a while since I've submitted writings for the second book, because as you know, we all the contributing authors, we get all these things in months ahead of time, and different things push back release dates, and then here we are about 9 months or so after I originally submitted the second writing. So what I've been doing, just focusing on my healing work, been more active on YouTube. And like we were discussing earlier, I started this 55 days of Christ consciousness recordings to support people, how they might integrate their higher aspects, their I am presence into their body through connecting with themselves and asking them questions. When I pull a certain card from this Christ consciousness deck, and so like yesterday, this week's topic, one of them was grace, right? And so it's like, well, how does grace show up in your life? And so that's kind of how we talk, and very organic and natural. And then I'll pull on some other oracle decks, and just allow higher guidance and thoughts to come through. And just like, okay, well, what's this have to do with Christ consciousness, and how can I cultivate grace within myself, right? And how can others cultivate grace within themselves, and then begin to embody that more and more? And what does that mean to them? Because it's one thing for me to download information as I'm meditating and pulling cards, but it's another to really cultivate other as an empowerment sense, to trust their own downloads and intuition. And that's really what my focus of my work is, whether I'm working with the body or if I'm working with a client remotely or through the YouTube or Instagram channels, is to remind people that you are your own authority. You are your own spiritual sovereign being. And it's time to embody that and let go of our doubts, let go of your questioning, and know when to call in people for guidance, and truly begin to put into practice your spiritual practices, and to manage your energy as well as protect it. Because so many people are waking up right now. And for me, I come back to that staple of, you got to learn to ground your body. You got to learn to ground your being and move from reaction to response and integrate your higher aspect. How truly would you like to be addressed in situations? And to walk through that with humility too, because none of us are perfect and we stumble along the way. But when you continue to put practices into place, it gets easier. It gets easier. So that's what I've been working on this week. And that'll basically, I pull a card each day, Monday through Friday, and then I upload it onto YouTube. I give the weekend a break for people to integrate, for myself to integrate and relax, because integration is a big piece. And so that's what I'm in right now, is this Christ consciousness energy. And I'm already feeling noticeable difference in myself and how I'm speaking, and even being here in this moment with you, and just taking time to let the words come and support others through their organic and unique process, that it doesn't have to be all woo woo and scary. It's actually quite a normal process to be in, and just your language about it might be different. So just supporting people through that.
Ah, there we go. Hashtag graceful Gina. There we go. All the G adjectives, indeed, especially the good ones.
Grace. Yeah,
Yes.
all the G's in my life, right? And yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's right, indeed, because she's got good stuff. Lots of good stuff, indeed. So, my goodness, in this book chapter in particular, my goodness, I actually went into the story of a sad loss of a friend, and a lot of folks can resonate with that now, since we're 3 years past the year that shall not be named, and you just find the courage and the strength to actually write that story in the book. So, what helps you to get the confidence to actually put pen to paper and actually put the story out there?
Oh, yeah. Well, it just felt like time to share it and speak out loud about it. And it really was inspired by someone asking me a question like, how did I get here? What happened in my life to bring me to this point? And there's been many catalysts in my life, but that is the one that stood out the most, because it was the biggest catalyst that really pushed me into my path of light and self-healing and light work and healing work, and really knowing myself more and stepping into this world of supporting others through their journey. And the loss of my friend Doug, who, those of you that get the book, you'll read the story, was a huge catalyst to that. And but not just him, it was the events that followed, that was the catalyst, right? So he was like the domino that put that into motion. And it's kind of funny because the manager I had at the time, They didn't, because we were coworkers and very good friends as well. And she didn't want to let me off work for his funeral, sadly. And that's when everything contracted. And so I feel having stories like this supports others not be afraid of being controlled by other things in their life. It's really breaking down this construct that even on a work level, that our management and employers have power over us, and it can dictate what we do and how we show up in our life. And for me, I'm just like, oh wow, no, like really, what's that worst thing that can happen? Is that okay? And that in my instance, you write me up and it stays in my file for 2 weeks or 2 years and then it's gone, right? Because I was in the public sector and you have to go through proper protocol. It takes a long time to fire somebody, but unless they do something really egregious. And so once I got out of my fear, right? Because it's fear that keeps us tolerating mistreatment and abuse. Misuse of power is what that is. Because all of this, everything that we are working with is power. Is power. So when we recognize that and simplify our lives and learn the language of power and energy and our energetics, I know for me, my life is totally different now. And I got to put myself in check too, like, because I'm walking this journey just like the rest of us. And having that humility to come through, but also having the courage to stand up for yourself. And so I speak out now because so many more people are waking up to themselves, but there's still a lot of fear in being themselves, talking about, oh, I talked to angels. Oh, I talked to ascended masters, or I had dreams. I'm doing this kind of work now. And all that is quickly fading away. Like people, there's such a larger community now of people stepping into their true essence and recognizing, oh, wait, I am more than just this human body. And for me, it comes back to the soul. It comes back to oneness with all that is, and beginning to relate to people in multiple dimensional ways, right? Their humanness, by the way they speak, they'll tell you exactly where they're at in their evolution or consciousness and ability to hold light, yeah, or not, right? And how might I still be myself and still be in my I am presence while navigating the day, my own challenges and the challenges of others, and to be able to hold that when you're in emotional states, right? Because that is because we're talking about self-mastery here. So when you or anyone or I am stretched to my emotional edges that you feel like you're just going to be torn apart, there's a moment in that fire that you can choose to rise up, or there's a moment in that fire where you crumble down, and then you kind of go bitter and anger and just like something else sits inside you to rot, right? Or fester. But it's in that fire when you rise up in that catalytic moment that your life forever changes after that, because the whole game changed, your boundaries completely get reset, and everyone else will feel that, right? Because now you're in your strength, you're in your power, and you're like, wow, you don't have any power over me. You can't dictate what I do in life anymore. My choices are my own, right? But as we step into this, at least for me, as I continue to step in further into this path of light, like this friend asked me about, I have to be of the utmost integrity in my choices and recognize my choices pulsate out into the world and will impact everyone involved. And that's a pretty big responsibility to even wrap your head around. But once you do, and it doesn't have to be this weight bearing thing on your shoulders. It's just like, okay, when you do what's right and in alignment with your intuition, your heart, and your higher self, then the choice becomes easy. It becomes graceful. You become in your personal power, and you don't have to fight for anything because you've reconciled it all within you. And I find in myself that ability to continue to hold compassion for those that may not like your choice, becomes easier as well, because then I'm in this place of like, you don't have to understand my choice and you don't have to accept it, but this is my choice. And that totally diffuses and de-escalates anything, because then you're in the truth of all that is, at least in that moment. And then you can't fight the truth. You can't argue it. I've been on the other end of that before too. And it's like, when I was younger, it's like, you're just going to end up spinning your wheels arguing with yourself. So if my experiences, such as the passing of Doug and the interaction later with my manager, can support people in recognizing how these things in our life propel us to be better, propel us to be in alignment with our higher self, our higher aspects, and what I feel many aspire to be. And there's that deeper longing as they connect to their soul and heart, because this is it's a heart awakening that we're all going through when we're ready, when each soul is ready to awaken. So that's my inspiration. And it all started with a question. And I just know for me, it's so important to continue to lead this life and be a way shower for others. And they'll come to across me or other people when they need to. But being a way shower doesn't mean I have to be on YouTube. It doesn't mean I even have to write anything. It's living my life with integrity, with love, with compassion, and all these like qualities that all of us can develop and have within us, and to appreciate the seemingly negative things that occur in our life and recognize they're not negative at all. If they're bringing us back to our higher aspect, then you just move out of that duality consciousness and into unity and oneness. And even that shatters, right? Even that language shatters and falls away. But to recognize that too is a step toward oneness, right? It's not, don't throw those experiences out with, it's like throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Like, no, everything in life has got us all, every single one of us, to this point collectively and individually. And how might I continue to just love it all, even the challenges and the stuff that is not pretty to talk about. But if I didn't go through these experiences and didn't open my heart and didn't be what feels like being cracked open, I wouldn't be as connected to my soul and heart, and I wouldn't have as much threshold for others to be going through their journeys, right? And I could see myself in them.
There you go. She found the mirror on the wall, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. The mirror on the wall, the dominoes on the floor, the wonderful beakers in the tubes. That's right, indeed. To have the right catalyst to explode into current day greatness, Gina. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Because hey, you're so right. Sometimes we just get to the point where it's like you just don't give a crap about whatever the heck else is going on. It's like, all right, I know I need this thing to happen. It's like, hey, it's my friend here. He took care of me when I had was injured and could barely freaking move when you had that back injury. It's like I gotta pay my respects here. And it's like if you can't let me do that, then well, forget you, buddy. You'll be all right.
Right? Yeah. And that's how, we show up for people. He took care of me a lot. I hear you referencing a piece of that. And we were friends before that. And then it was that, even that experience too was a learning for me to ask for help, ask for assistance, right? So this whole place was, okay, my family lived out of the area. Who can help me when I'm in recovery and be there? And so I had to learn just to ask and accept the help the way it showed up. And he was one that showed up and checked on me every day. And then I had other friends that, did laundry, because it was so important for me as a Virgo, right? Most Virgos are clean. They like things in order. And all I wanted was my house to be clean and in order. And that's it. So his niece had come over and she helped with that. Even my manager, who later on was a key point to this experience for me, she helped do laundry for me because I wasn't supposed to lift anything and all these things. And, and I had people that also made dinners for me, and I made sure I had food so I didn't have to carry or move around more than I needed to, especially in the first couple weeks of recovery, because I had a lower back surgery due to some herniations. In which that too, in the healing world, in the energetics, that's all support, right? That lower back, first chakra, the energetics of your tribe, like who am I calling on for support? And am I in gratitude for the support? Right. So there was a lot of healing that came through this whole experience, even leading up to the physical injury in my body, because that was a deeper thread in that for me in my own healing journey, was recognizing, oh yeah, to be in gratitude, particularly for the way I grew up, right? For what my parents did give me versus being upset or I wish they would have shown up this way or that way. And because many of us, I don't care how old we are, still carry some resentment toward our parents of these expectations that we think they should be, and forget that they're just people too, and they did the best they can in raising us with the tools they had, because they're human, right? And so when I got back to that place, because I already saw them more as people in my by the time I was in my early 20s, but still that energetic imprint was running through my body. And even after my surgery, all of a sudden my head back had gone out. And I was just like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And it was aligned with a home visit home. And it happened to be on a night when I was traveling back to the Bay Area that I was going to a drum circle. And so I texted my mentor at the time and said, hey, I need a chair tonight because I'm working on this. And I just laughed. I'm all, oh, this is so perfect. The time, because that's what happens as you open up, the synchronicities in your life for healing and growth just sync up. So there's no accident in any of this. It's all divinely orchestrated. And that's a big concept to surrender to, right? So coming back to with Doug's help and assistance and caring, that also healed this other aspect of calling in support and stripping away this belief and way of being that you have to do it yourself, that you have to find your way yourself, and right, and which is a great quality to have too. I really appreciate that my parents, and particularly my dad, was find a way to do things yourself, don't depend on other people, right? But when we go to that extreme, then it starts to hurt us. And his whole thing was making sure you have your needs met, right? Your basic needs. You got food on the table, you have money in your pocket, and you have a home, right? That was his whole point, I feel. In you have to go do that. You want a job, you want food on the table, you got to do it. Don't expect a handout from people, right? So that can also run through like, well, what does that mean when I do need help? I had to learn to ask for help. And part of my journey with my back was that it gave me just that ability to go, you know what? I learned to ask for help. I learned to ask for help because even in getting a job, there's other people involved, right? You go through the interviewing process, and then that becomes part of your journey too. Like, oh, all these people and where I work, that all gave me something. Yes. Did I put the actions in motion and the rest unfolded? Absolutely. But we never truly get anywhere by ourselves. Yet you got to take the steps and do the work to obtain and achieve things. So I learned to ask for help and then appreciate who shows up in whichever way they show up. And that it was a big piece in working with letting go of any expectation. And I still work with that. I'm not perfect by any means, but it's nice to be able to be in a more harmonious way with these things within myself and with others. It's not personal anymore, right? Before I would take it more personal, like, oh, no one wants to help me, or why would I ask? Who's going to help me? Kind of thinking. And it's so far from the truth because people genuinely, I feel, want to help each other. It gives us purpose.
That's what I'm talking about. Purpose indeed. Purpose indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Especially when it comes to putting pen to paper. So, my goodness, a lot of wonderful gems from the wonderful gem bearing Gina herself. Indeed. So, what are you excited about for the future? Is there going to be a future Gina show only book where it's going to be you writing a complete start to finish book of your own?
Oh, that is a great question. And you're like the third person or fourth person to ask me that. And I'm just getting tingles. And yes, I would say yes, there will be. I don't know when, but it feels like things are in motion. And I'm excited that you even asked me that question. And because there's been different little blogs I've written, as you know, I'll write for Peggy Wilms on her blog, and then on BizCat 360 with Dennis Pitoko, I'll share the blogs there as well. And so there's a couple that has a lot of content and potential to break it down and go deeper into some other chapters, and with our road to freedom and sovereignty and what that looks like individually, but as well as perhaps for collectively, like on a country level, right? And I could even maybe even bring it down into a local city or state level as well. But it makes sense to me for all people that live in whichever country they live in, and we're here in the US, that we're also these souls that chose to live here or migrate here, and we're on that healing journey in this greater collective. And what does that look like, and what's my participation in it on a soul level? So that's some little ideas I've been running through my head. But as well, as you know, I started this 55 days of Christ consciousness, and the downloads coming from connecting to each card each day, each attribute that's within, again, they're within all of us. And what did we start with this week? We had Judas, which is funny, is the catalyst, right? And then we had the teacher. Yesterday we actually talked about enlightenment, miracles, and I can't remember day two right off the top of my head. But as we sit in these energies, as I sit in these energies, just this, all of a sudden something else comes through, source comes through. And it may be something with that too, like, what's my journey with this 55 days of consciousness? How have I changed? What was it like being in each energy, and to take time with it even further? Like, it's not meant to just go one day and that's it. I encourage people and myself, connect with that content today or maybe tomorrow or in a month from now, and just pick a day, sit with that day, or maybe spend a weekend with it and write about it. What comes through you? So I feel that may be a really, really fun project to do and put pen to paper on that. So we'll see.
There we go. And then voice to microphone because you got to read it too. That's right, indeed. Just can't walk around
Yeah. And that,
hypnotizing people on your radio show alone now.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I hear that a lot with my voice. And that's one thing I feel I might do, is create a podcast with the audio recordings that I already have with the 55 days of consciousness or Christ consciousness, and just start uploading those. And then because I think people will just reach out to it, the content, as they feel, they're like, huh, what is this? And really it's a dialogue. I feel that's how I describe it. It's a dialogue between me, the listener, and the energy. And so that, I see the podcast coming for that, because I can go ahead and start it now, as I already have a good week on it. So that will complement the YouTube recordings, I think, really nicely. Yeah, maybe we'll talk offline a little bit about that, the podcast piece.
Okay, all right, there we go. Hey, let's keep it going indeed. That's right, indeed. A little yin yang swag.
Yeah.
That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, so since now we got the two books out, you got all your writings, and you plan to one day do a solo dolo Gina special book. Has there been any skills you've been working on in addition to going through the magical oracle 55-day journey of Christ consciousness?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Any skills? That's, yeah, I have to sit with that for a second. The one that stands out the most is just putting them to practice. right? And really this bridging my intuition and higher self and my heart, and making choices from the wisdom of all those centers that are within me and how I move forward. So that really is the management of my energetics. That has what I've been working with the most. So it's recognizing, oh, my intuitive hits and then my thoughts, because we get our intuitive hits in various ways. And I'm recognizing how quickly, and I'm like, okay, thank you for showing me this energy that's in the field. And then I'm just observing it. So it's this listening to my intuition, my higher guidance, and then making choices from that space, because I'm recognizing, oh, I'm being prepared for what potentially is coming. And so far, every time I act on it, it's in a timely manner. As soon as I get the intuitive hits and the higher guidance, it's very important to put it into action, to not wait. I find I wait, that's when the potential for more discordant or conflict happens. But when I respond to it and put it into action through love, it channels that energy before it becomes discordant between me and another person or whatever is in front of me, right? So that's where I feel I'm working with, is the action piece. As soon as I feel it, I reconcile it, kind of sit with it, because it gets faster. It could be done within seconds, or some things in your life that present themselves. Some people might take, oh, you know what, let me sit with that just a little bit longer and kind of go, okay, then is what I'm feeling accurate, right? And really going deeper into your higher mind and your higher heart and your third eye, right? And bringing in that wisdom in, because that too is expanding. And so the sensitivities and the telepathic things that are occurring, where I'm just like, wow, okay, yeah, yeah. And so that's been the latest thing in my field right now, and getting comfortable with speaking telepathically. And what does that look like, right? What does it feel like? Because it's these subtle energies that you don't see, but you know is happening. And so this was really fun. I played around with it the other day, and I happened to be outside watering the roses, and a friend of mine and her husband were walking across the street with their dog. And I just looked up and just said hello in my mind. And it was like within seconds, her dog looked up and she looked up and waved. And because we're constantly speaking through light, right? We're constantly speaking through light, because telepathy is through light and frequency. So that is what has been on the forefront the last few months, where I'm becoming more and more aware of that ability becoming heightened. And so if it's heightening in me, that means it's heightening in others. So there's more conversation to be had there in the expansion of our third eye and heart. And what does that mean? What does that look like? How do we manage that energetically
There we
and with
go.
boundaries? And a lot of integrity there too.
Oh, heck yeah, dude. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So,
Yeah.
gotta love it. That's right, indeed. Managing the magical energy. That's
Yeah.
right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Especially
Oh,
spirit, swag, and sounds like animal communication, if I'm hearing you correctly, with the
oh,
dog
how
smiling and
funny.
saying,
There could be. There could be. And I know I'm in the midst of like revamping, redirecting my website and offerings, because I'm choosing to do more remote work versus in-person sessions. That's not to say I won't see people in person, but I'll be bringing more of a focus of remote healing work, because I can reach more people that way. And I can, for myself, it's just, as my energies are more sensitive, it's just better for my own self-care and well-being right now, that my focus kind of changed a little bit. And as I'm integrating, and I feel that's a big piece for some people, that you got to pay attention to when you need integration time and how you do your work in this sense, especially if you work with energetics a lot and with people coming into themselves when we're doing healing work and guiding. So that I'm already doing. So if people need healing work that's remotely, I'm happy to at least have a conversation with you, see if we're a fit. And I also have been doing Akashic record readings and support people for their highest guidance from that higher perspective and how that plays out into their daily life. So people have been really responsive with that as well. And so you can just email me if you'd like a conversation, and we can talk about it.
Yeah. So reading the Akashic Records, huh?
Yeah. And it's fun. I like connecting with it. And then when I was first studying it and preparing myself more with it, because I feel it's really important. Part of what I do is teach people the skills, right? Because I still see people for guidance when I need to, when I'm too much like, okay, I need a third party here because I'm too involved. But all of us becoming more and more sovereign, when you begin to master these qualities within you and recognize, oh, I had the power in me all the time. But when you learn these skills to begin to access your own records, your own imprints, your own patterns, so you can just be you, right? And no longer seek outside yourself. And then what I notice is you come together in groups, it's a whole different journey now as we come together in circle, because people are coming in as recognizing their whole, and that we're all bringing aspects of ourselves through individuality and creation and how their own expression, we're all bringing parts of ourselves into the circle that are part of all of us. And that's a very different, or I think more people are coming into that knowing, right? Where I'm recognizing as we come to circle, I want to hear people talk, but I also want to teach people and remind them that we still honor what is said in with neutrality, and not necessarily coming into it with a response to what someone said. However, in ceremony, sometimes you have these moments where there's some cross dialogue. Sometimes you have to let things unfold, and then being the one holding the space, then you kind of guide it back into the rest of the ceremony, because there's things that happen within it that perhaps need to be allowed the space to have the back and forth. And I find with someone that knows how to hold that space well, they're able to guide the group back together and tie it in and weave that threshold experience in so beautifully for the group and the individuals themselves. So I'm seeing that evolve. Our the way we gather is evolving. And partly because people are coming to that knowing that they're whole. They're just accessing their higher qualities and letting them come out, and creating and trusting that they're always in a safe place. And even when people are aggressive and coming across like they're attacking you in some way, when you're whole, when you're in your light, you're able to recognize that when people are operating that way, they're not in their light when they're operating that way. There's something else occurring, a different current running through them. And how might you still be mindful of your own energetics? And sometimes you have to move away from people or not engage it, right? So you're learning, I feel people are learning like, oh yeah, okay, that's what I'm recognizing. How do I move forward in this scenario? Right? And that's bringing in your intuitive center, your heart center, your higher guidance, and taking action, taking appropriate action. So that may be a long-winded response to your questions, but hopefully people get a good sense of what that might mean and how is it showing up in your life, right? Because that's really the testing ground. You can say all these things are love and light, but you have to know the dark. You have to learn to recognize that and work really with it, not become it, but because we all have our dark side. But how do you work with that to, again, moving out of that duality consciousness into oneness? Because how does that helping you stay in your golden light?
Ah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about freaking indeed. So my goodness, my goodness. So with all of that wonderful stuff that you're doing with your toolbox expanding, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often when you're on the guest side of the microphone?
That's a good question. I wish they'd ask more questions, right? Sometimes it's like, is anyone listening? Come on, ask questions or share your experience. But then at some level, I'm just like, you know what? They're taking it in. They're taking it in because people will ask when they're ready to ask. And I know sometimes, someone once, a guide of mine, a mentor, okay, someone I called for some guidance and some clarity. And she described, she's like, it's like you're a Marmite person, and so she described what that, and because I was not familiar with that term, and she's like, well, it's kind of, she's like, you either like it or you don't, right? And she's also, some people, she's like, you have that effect on people sometimes, and they either can be in your energy or they can't. They either like you or they don't. And it's true. I look back on my life and it's very interesting. And there's people like, oh, you know what? At first I didn't like you, but then the more I was around you, I realized what a big heart you have and all these things. It's like they didn't know what to make of me at first. And I'm just thinking, like, I don't know what you're, right? Because a lot of times we weren't having conversation. And for me, it's like, how do you get to know someone if you don't have conversation? And all you're seeing is maybe the way I'm standing, right? Like physically standing. And once people start talking to me, then it's a whole different experience. But at the same time, I do know that it can be challenging if I'm just in this space of, well, what is that for you? Like, I'm not sure why you're so upset, right? And sometimes people don't know how to respond to that. And it can be challenging. They get kind of uncomfortable in that question. So, I think I would like people to ask, or maybe even share, what is it within them that makes them uncomfortable to be in their own light, so maybe have a response to that. Like, I know that's not a question, I'm asking a question with a question, but it's something to ponder, right? Like, why are you uncomfortable to be in your own light and to be whole?
Uh, so I guess that leads to this follow-up question. So that person said that crazy nonsense. Probably not even saying hi at first. Did they see you in your cop uniform?
Has anybody, what's so interesting? I have not been in that. I mean, people can see me in it. I mean, you could look my name up and there's a picture in Facebook with the department I used to work for in uniform. I actually came across that like last week, which is kind of funny because it feels so long ago. And what they do is something really nice where they're like, why I wear the badge is what it's called. And they'll profile someone in the department and post it on the department website. And it's really interesting because you get a window into why people go into service. And so I shared it with a friend of mine. And let me see if I can actually, it's on my my thread. And I sent it to a group of other light workers where we touch base weekly. And I was sharing with them, like, God, it feels like so long ago. It's been about almost 2 years that I left, but it feels longer. And she said to me, she's like, oh, what a neat picture, and how the message was still the same. I'm just being in service in a different way. And because while I worked in law enforcement, I was already studying massage and healing arts and going through my own journey. And so here's what I wrote at that time and why I wear the badge. And it says, I wear the badge because I value public service and the well-being, not only of the community, but of my fellow coworkers throughout the department. Working as a record specialist places me in a unique and valuable position to assist the public and department in various ways. My goal is to provide assistance with patience and compassion in order to be of service to the community in the best possible way. Having the opportunity to work with Santa Clara Police Department and the Records Division has offered me just that. It's something I'm proud to be a part of and thankful for. And later on, I became a community service officer with that same department. And interesting enough, at that time, because when was this? I think this was in 2015. And at that time, this post got the most views, most responses. And I thought, oh, how interesting. And someone told me that. And because once it's up, I'm like, okay. And that hasn't really changed. So my friend's like, that hasn't really changed for you. She's like, you're still doing it and being in service to community. And it's through this healing work. And even while I was at the department, that was always been one of my focuses. I was part of the peer support team. And just before I left, I was going to be part of the wellness program because I always thought that to be should be the umbrella and the peer support be underneath it. And so I left and now I'm here doing this work. And I've had people ask me before, like, oh, why don't you make that your niche, working with law enforcement or first responders? And it hasn't been a calling to me. I think it's still too close for me to go back into that energy. And I want to be in something else. It's like, I don't want to, it's an interesting question I'd have to sit with it longer to really feel like what is my apprehension, but at this point, I feel it's more of that piece of not enough time has passed to come back into supporting first responders under that roof at this time, where I could come in and be part of their wellness programs. So who knows, that may change in another year or two. And that's not much time at all. But I know for me, it's just, I needed that. Yeah, that's like 24 months, right? 2 years. I needed more time for myself to remember who I am without the law enforcement badge on me. Right. And to not be seen solely by that. And because that too was an experience that was just a part of me, but it doesn't define me. Yet people want to put it in a box, right? No difference than like being gay, right? People want to put it in a box. And I say this term just so people can relate, but I don't identify that way, right? But I date women. I'm not opposed to dating men. I don't call myself bisexual. I don't call myself lesbian. I don't use any term. I'm Gina. I love who I love. And sometimes those are romantic relationships. And what I found, people want to put it in a box. They want to put law enforcement in a box and just these labels that limit us over and over. And they forget that, what's on the other side of that label is a human being. That human being has loved ones at home. They want to love people and they want to be loved. You can't put love in a box. Right. And so I, for one, don't really care to over identify with anything in my life anymore. Even as being on this path of light and love, I don't even want to over identify with that either. Yet it's become who I am in my essence. I want to give it the space to unfold because every day I step further into love. I get new wisdom in it and what that means, right? And why can't anything else be that, right? Even the fields of service that we're in, right? Like, what does it mean to be a podcaster, Dom, right? Like, I would hope that expands for you, right? Same thing could be said for a first responder, because the field itself is changing all the time based on society and how the public is also evolving. But I guess now I just wear a different badge, a whole other shield of love.
Yeah, there you go. Shield of love swag, baby. That's right indeed. You love to see. You love to see it indeed. That's right indeed. So I guess some would jokingly say, "Hey, so what do you think you have to do to step into your life to get back to helping the first responders?" Maybe it's like, "Come on, come back into the
Oh,
past life as a different person."
yeah, it's the alchemy, right? That's a great question. Maybe it just takes one person from that field to reach out and just say,
Yeah,
hey, can you help us? Can you guide us? What can you bring to the table for our well-being?
that's right indeed. That's right indeed. 'Cause
Yeah.
she's all about that well-being indeed. That's right indeed. She's like a freaking well, y'all. That's right indeed. It's like a whole river of content, y'all. That's right. A river of fabulosity. You'll love to feel it. And you love to see
Oh,
it indeed. That's right
yeah, thank
indeed. Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. It's like being in your presence is like a gift. No pun intended.
thank you.
Ah, yes, ma'am,
It's
indeed.
nice that that radiates out. Thank you
Oh
for
yeah.
sharing that.
Oh, it does. It does. You're back on here for a reason, dadgummit.
Yeah, I know, and I'm just like, "Oh, Don loves having me on." I just love, when people connect and they generally connect and wanna dive a little deeper on what brought this through, like, tell us more about it, and because then you get a window into my experiences and how I have come to who I am today, and I don't know what I'll be tomorrow, but there's a humbleness I feel too that comes with when we share our experiences that we're not alone in them. We all have some loss of some kind, some stress of some kind, but how do we walk through it? How do we walk each other through it? Because then that love through that becomes that sustaining energy that brings us back to our connection with ourself and God and source and the love inside. And then that can get expressed out. And for me, it just gets stronger. And then that ability to just also stay neutral while I'm also reconciling my own stuff, right? How do I stay neutral with that too? And just be like, I gotta give myself some space here. And because I don't want to say something I can't take back, especially when we're potential for conflict with others. I don't want to fight fire with fire because it doesn't feel good, right? It's what war doesn't help anybody. There's no winners in war, and there's no winners in our own internal war until it's reconciled and brought to peace, right? And that was one of the Tesla quotes I came across last night with the enlightenment. And it was, what we now want is closer contact and better understanding between individuals and communities all over the earth, and the elimination of egoism and pride, which is always prone to plunge the world into prime evil, barbarianism, and strife. And peace can only come as a natural consequence of universal enlightenment. And so I've been sitting with that quote, particularly, well, all aspects of it, but particularly that section. It may be, it's an excerpt from something else he said, so I know there's more to it in that writing. But I thought, yeah, once everyone is at peace in their own heart, so too will the universe be at peace. Because it spreads out, because then your own microcosm is at peace, and then you're never at war with anybody because you're peaceful here. Yet the more peace I find in myself here, the more I'm witnessing and can really feel the war inside others. And that's where I have to come back to, oh, I was once there. Maybe I wasn't that far as deep, but I was once there in my own experiences. And it's important to not compare because the energy is the same. Conflicts. It's sometimes the intensity of that conflict that may or may be different, right? And so then I return to peace.
Ah, there you go. That's right. Sometimes it's a piece of Kit Kat. Who would have thought? That's right, indeed. When you
Yeah.
return to peace.
What is
And
it? Those Snickers commercials? The Snickers commercials. And then they're like, they throw, you just need a Snickers.
It's like,
Feed
imagine
the
yourself
beast. Is
without a
that what it
Snickers.
was? Was that the slogan at the time? Feed the beast. And they throw the Snickers bar at the person and they're like, oh, I'm back to myself again. So how we're not that different, right? Feed feed the peace inside you and you'll return to like this peaceful being. And you're like, wow, I can't believe I was this over here for a second. So instead of feed the beast, feed your peace. And see what happens, right? See what happens.
Heck yeah, indeed. Heck yeah, indeed. Well, speaking of Snickers, got two more questions. I'll let you make a run for it. So, my goodness, so this fabulous book for round two. When the Wellness War, we are responsible. If that book were a food, what would it be and why?
Oh, what would it be and why? Well, lasagna comes to mind because majority of people I know love lasagna. It could feed a lot. There's something, it reminds me of maybe my Italian roots. You can make different things with lasagna. It can be all this cheesy goodness. It could be vegetables. You can have a nice meaty bolognese sauce in there. But also, if you have too much, the density is like, oh my God, I ate too much. So maybe you take the book with a little bit at a time, a little piece at a time, because there's a lot in it. There's a lot of content in it. And even in the fourfold formula that Peggy created, there's a lot in her wheel, in that wheel, the 12 spokes, right? But how might some of our stories contribute to your own digestion? I'll say. So take it in small bites, and I think you'll really enjoy it and find it nourishing and content, and then maybe take a nap to integrate.
Love the way your mind works indeed. That's right indeed.
Um,
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Well, you already know you're welcome back on the show anytime for no freaking reason at all. It's like just the smile and her voice and the presence, the energy is like, yes, it's an easy freaking win indeed with Gina. So my goodness, coming down to the question reserved for folks who make it back to round two on the GMP. So my goodness, you're called to give the final keynote speech of your life. You get 90 minutes, and your audience is all 8 billion people on Earth all at once looking right at you. That's right, indeed. We're able to get them all in one giant stadium somehow through modern technology and magic. What would be the main message of your speech? What would the main points of that message entail?
yeah, I think we've covered some of those things. Don't be afraid to be yourself, and walk in humility and practice grace in your life. And because there's many paths, but they all lead us home. And remember that we're all just trying to find the peace in our heart, and it's there the whole time. There's nothing to seek outside of yourself. And it's not elusive. Enlightenment is not elusive at all. And to take note in your own life where you have brought light to something already, because it's in those small places that when we bring in the light into ourself or into a situation, that's enlightenment, that's bringing wisdom, it's bringing knowledge, and we're already doing it. We just need to do it every day, right? More sustainable, and then it just becomes you. So just take it, one bite at a time, and recognize where you are in your enlightenment. And it's okay that right where you're at is perfect. Because when I was reading about enlightenment last night, I was reminded, like, it's not elusive, and it's not something that we need to seek. It's something that we already have within us, and that we were once all enlightened at some point in another soul life, or as we return to our creator source, in whatever that means for us, right? As energetic beings. And just stay in your heart, and then the peace within it. And there's nothing to fear inside you, because just bring the light to it, and it'll take care of the rest.
There we go. Take care of the rest of the day. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Jim Bearing Gina's at it again. That's right, indeed. Enlightenment is not elusive. That's right, indeed. That's right. It's not elusive, indeed. You have to put on the orange robe and shave your head. That's right, indeed. It'll come to you, especially at the most random moments when you're minding your business. Sometimes it comes in the shower. That's right, indeed. While you're recording a double platinum album. That's right, indeed. Where you got more streams than Michael Jackson and the Eagles combined. That's right, indeed. That's when the real enlightenment shows up. That's right.
Yes. But it's all true. I get some of my best ideas in the shower, and then I forget them. And I'm like, shoot, that's so good. Oh, I'll have to have like a waterproof thing in there to write it down.
hmm Yep. I guess enlightenment can be elusive then.
It can be, not for long though. Some other light will come and take its place. So yeah.
Ah,
So I hope everyone gets book 1 and 2, and then whatever book 3 brings us in the future, because there's a lot of wonderful stories in it, not just mine. And I have no doubt everyone will connect with something in it.
Ooh, does that mean you're coming back for round 3?
I think it is. Yeah, it feels weird not to
Ooh.
complete this series. Yeah.
There we go. All right, me double lucky. In this case, me triple lucky.
Yeah. It'll be the trifecta. Mm.
Well, when there's a triple, that means I got to make a random Illuminati joke and Illuminati reference. Seeing pyramids everywhere. So for those, so for those who want a metaphorically
Start
join
throwing
the
out
pyramids.
symbols. Start throwing out symbols with your hands.
Yeah, that's right indeed. It's the
Jeez.
rock.
Yeah, right.
That's right
Yeah,
indeed. Right
bet.
indeed. Right indeed. That's right.
Oh gosh, so interesting. That's where I remind people, you stay in your pillar, just stay focused on your what, yeah, because we can easily be distracted and pulled into other people's agendas. And I want to understand mine. It's hard enough going through my own experience versus getting sucked into others. So
Come on, join us. Get sucked in the confusion. Come on. It's nothing but a stony road full of Legos. You'll be fine. We take your shoes
yeah, I'll
before you
just
step on
laugh.
the Legos.
Right? I'll just laugh. Just laugh when we get spit out the other side, lean like, was that fun? Right? That will be like, thanks for that little roller coaster, Dom. And then we can just laugh about it, right? And that's the nice thing with the more just like unattached I become to experiences and just be like, well, okay, we survived that one. And because really that's what you can get to. I feel anyone can get to that place of like, man, was that a roller coaster? And I'm glad I'm off of it, right? And back to solid ground and grounded states. Because gosh, Lord knows I've been in my own roller coasters and in others' chaos. And again, it comes back to like, well, what happened for me in that process and what it was I doing in that process. And they've all led me here. It's all led me here, and to look back at it and going like and just be filled with that much more love about it and those that were also involved, you know? And then when I come across every now and then people that were involved in certain things and chaos of stuff, I'll say, of our growth, where I recognize I'm all, oh, wow, we didn't have the same experience at all. Cause here I am all light and lighter and being like so excited to see them. And then I forget. And I was quickly reminded, like, oh, they're still processing some of the human experience of it, and that's totally fine. Right. Where for me, the two became the catalyst of like, of my own growth, kind of referring back to book one in that story of waiting for half and half, right? There was a lot that brought me to a point, and but that experience, like I wouldn't change a thing, not condoning events that occurred in that by any means, but something in that experience I softened and it cracked me open. And my mantra had become and still is in many days of just keep my heart open, just keep my heart open. And I feel had I not had that experience, not even feel, I know had I not had that experience, I wouldn't be exactly where I am today in it. And where I can see these people and just be in the love for them on a soul level. Like I start to see them on the soul level, and but be very mindful not to be blinded by that, their soul light, and remembering, oh, they're also having their human experience. And that is a piece for us to remember, that we can be blinded by light and then that's all we want to see. We still must be aware, have our awareness of, okay, what human experience are they having and where are they operating from? And that's what we really need to pay attention to, not just on ourselves, but as we interact with others. It's that communication. It's the communication. So yeah, it's just kind of that roller coaster. And you will all, I have no doubt, in your own time, all of you out there that are connecting with some of this, you'll come out fine. You'll come out exactly as you should be. And so will other parties, but stay in your lane, right? It's kind of come back to your lane, stay in your focus, stay on your golden line and connection to source, and you will be fine. You'll be totally fine. And remember that every soul's on their own journey and you cannot force someone else's awakening. And it's a waste of energy of yours to try. You will exhaust yourself. So focus on you. And it's not necessarily in a selfish way or cold way, but you will discover how to do that through trial and error. And you'll be fine. We're all good.
We're all good indeed. That's right indeed. So for those who need to feel great by keeping up with you and all that you do, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Oh, yeah. They can go visit me on my website at soulinspiredreflections.com. They can also email me at Gina at soulinspiredreflections.com, and happy to connect. You can sign up to my newsletter and subscribe to the email list. I don't over inundate people. It's just more to say, here's what's happening currently of events or opportunities. Every now and then I might shoot a blog out. It's really, I operate when I'm inspired to do something, that's when I do it. So, because my own energy level of weekly, and like feeling like I have to do something weekly, that doesn't work for me. But when I'm inspired to do something, like right now, the 55 days of consciousness, it's an inspiration to do it for 5 days, take a break until we're done with the deck. So I'll do it till I don't, right? And then I'll rest. So anyway, email me, check out my website. There's some updates occurring, so be patient with that, and reach out and be happy to talk to you.
Woohoo! Hearing that voice, yeah, everybody should be happy to talk to Gina indeed. That's right indeed, sir. That right, folks. We're gonna put links to all the wonderful stuff in the show notes, just like before, indeed, and keep up with all the stuff that she's doing because it's good stuff indeed. That's right indeed. Good with more O's than a Cheerios box. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Especially one of those family size boxes. That's right indeed. So keep up with it indeed. So that way you can have that radiance. That's right indeed. Hashtag glowing Gina indeed. So any parting word before we close up shop, Gina?
Any parting words? Remember the little simple joys in your life.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.